This video was requested by Joms and Omni10. Hello and welcome back to Quirk Analysis 101, the series where I give you a detailed rundown on the quirks in the world of My Hero Academia. In the last video, I discussed the ability that belongs to the hidden heroine who hides her hereditary hallmarks, Toru Hagukare, and her very questionable quirk, Invisibility. In today's video, I'll be discussing the quirk that belongs to the rambunctious, loud-mouthed, lariat-loving, Hellboy-inspired whipping boy of the 9 Heroes of Hope, Daigoro Banjo. Also, don't forget to Detroit smash that like button and slide into that subscribe button's DMs to hit that notification bell. And now, without further ado, let's swing our way on over to the badass Belmont beloved brutal quirk that is Blackwhip. Blackwhip is an emitter-type quirk which first appeared in chapter 210 of the My Hero Academia manga and episode 98 of the anime. This quirk grants its user the ability to produce black energy tendrils from any part of their body and command them at will. The strength of this quirk seems to be directly connected to the user's emotions, primarily the emotion anger, meaning the angrier the wielder gets, the stronger the quirk becomes. Funnily enough, the first time we see this quirk, it isn't used by Mr. Banjo himself, but it's actually used by everyone's favorite protagonist boy, Izuku Midoriya, who, like a typical teenage boy having their own sort of awakening, uncontrollably blasts the tendrils everywhere upon first activation. Now, the tendrils the user of this quirk produces are made up of some form of black energy, and it hasn't been stated what type of energy this exactly is. Whether it's some scientifically groundbreaking new form of energy Lord Horikoshi has discovered in his free time, or just some made-up superhero mumbo-jumbo is unclear. But what we do know is that it seems to share characteristics with Shota Aizawa's binding cloth, in that it is extremely durable, has a huge amount of tensile strength, and is malleable enough to easily be wrapped and tightened around almost any physical object, whether that be a person or a thing. So basically, this quirk just gives you the ability to use Aizawa's capture scarf in black energy form, although I will say the physics behind it are probably easier to explain than that scarf. Seriously, what is happening here? Like, it's legit just floating and has a mind of its own. And now it's committing child abuse. For the love of God, someone stop it! And now it's time to talk about this quirk's abilities, for which there actually are quite a few of. Firstly, we have this quirk's combat usage. Similar to how Aizawa uses his scarf or how Sero uses his tape, the user of this quirk can wrap and trap their opponent in their energy tendrils, greatly reducing their opponent's mobility and potentially immobilizing them indefinitely. This gives the user a major upper hand in mid to close range combat, as all they have to do is wrap their tendrils around their opponent fast enough and then there's practically no escape. But if your opponent happens to be too big or too fast to be wrapped completely in Blackwhip, however, then the user can instead focus on grabbing a single body part. If your opponent primarily uses punches, you could quickly grab their arm with this quirk, temporarily preventing them from performing a full swing. Or you could grab their leg or foot, causing them to trip up, giving you an opportunity to land a devastating or finishing blow. Just like every lonely man after No Nut November, all you need is a tight grip and one good pull and boom, problem solved. Support-wise, this quirk also has some pretty good benefits. Blackwhip can be used to catch large incoming projectiles, stopping them in their tracks and preventing them from making an impact. This is great for not only stopping an incoming barrage of projectiles, but it is also good for rescue scenarios, where the user of this quirk can catch falling debris about to land on civilians, or even safely catch multiple cars full of people which were used as projectiles by a villain, the latter of which tends to happen a lot more than you would think. Blackwhip can also prove to be useful in evacuation situations, where it can be used to grab onto and pick up multiple people at once, lifting them away from danger and making them far easier to carry. Inversely, you could also use this quirk to pick up your enemies, and instead of lifting them to safety, you could just yeet them into danger or into another villain, whatever boats your float. As for mobility wise, this quirk is ideal for mid-air maneuverability. Similar to how Sero uses his tape quirk to stick onto buildings and swing around like Spider-Man, the user of Blackwhip can also do the very same. All the user of this quirk has to do is shoot a tendril towards a building or structure, let it grab onto that building or structure, and there you have it. You can swing through the air like a friendly neighborhood bug-human genetic hybrid. Now this does come with all of the typical advantages you would expect. Enhanced movement speed, increased vertical and mid-air maneuverability, advantages in both combat and rescue scenarios, a new strange impulse to make comedic jokes and remarks, and the insufferable feeling of guilt and dread over the death of a loved one for which which are in action caused. But it also vastly increases this quirk's versatility. Not only is Blackwhip great for restraining and capturing opponents, but with the addition of this enhanced movement, it also makes the user themselves extremely hard to pin down. As for named super moves, this quirk doesn't really have any as of yet, although it does have two pretty unique abilities. The first of which is recoil absorption. For this move, the user wraps Blackwhip tendrils around their forearm, resulting in them acting as a recoil buffer to reinforce the user's arm from the inside out. This helps reduce any recoil damage the user's forearm may suffer. The other unique move actually has a name, and it's called Froppy Style, in which the user just shoots a black tendril out of their mouth, similar to how Suyu Asui would use her tongue. The only real difference between this move and any other usage of this quirk is the location the tendril is being produced from. Now, if you ask me, a real power move would be if the user made a tendril shoot out of their ass or from their frontal private area. There ain't nobody who wants to be wrapped in that Blackwhip. Now, unfortunately, just like every other quirk in the series, Blackwhip does come with its fair share of weaknesses. The first and most notable of which is the quirk's connection to the user's emotions. Not only is the strength of Blackwhip directly correlated to the user's level of anger, meaning that if the user isn't an irritable person or just isn't angry, the quirk won't be able to reach its full strength, but if the user of this quirk becomes emotionally unstable, they may also lose control over the quirk entirely. This weakness is first seen when Midoriya first activates Blackwhip in the joint training arc, where he gets overwhelmed by his emotions and Blackwhip begins to uncontrollably and sporadically shoot out of his body against his will. So if you're a very complacent or emotional person, this quirk might not be for you. Another weakness this quirk holds is the fact that the tendrils the user produces must remain attached to the user's body. Now this actually results in a couple of problems. Unlike Sero's tape, if you have a hold on an enemy using this quirk, you can't let go if you want to keep them restrained. Basically, you can't just tie someone up with this quirk and walk away. You have to remain focused on keeping them trapped in your bind. It's like tying someone up in a rope, but as soon as you let go of the rope, it disappears. If you want to keep the person restrained, you can't let go. This also leads to problems when you're trying to grapple your opponents with this quirk. If you wrap Blackwhip around an enemy's arm and they are stronger than you, then instead of you pulling them or holding them back, they could instead overpower you and fling you around or pull you towards them. In fact, this quirk's strength is also heavily dependent on the user's physical strength as well. If you wanted to pick something up with this quirk or throw something you grab with it over a distance, you would have to be physically strong enough to do so. So if you're not the most physically blessed Giga Chad, then this quirk certainly wouldn't be as beneficial as you'd like. People often forget that one of Spider-Man's superpowers is enhanced strength. It ain't easy swinging around them cityscapes. But weaknesses aside, this quirk still does have some potential. Firstly, the user could use Blackwhip like a whip. So far, we've only seen this quirk used for grappling and for movement, but if the user actually used the black tendrils like whips, it would give them an insane advantage when it comes to combat. I mean, all they would have to do is just have a few tendrils appear from their back and boom, you have multiple controllable limbs that you can swing at high speeds for some serious damage. Just think of Tamaki Yamajiki's vast hybrid Chimera Kraken special move, except with Blackwhip. If the user wanted to perform long-ranged attacks, then they could do so by using Blackwhip to launch projectiles. By standing a bit away from the object they want to throw and then grabbing onto it with Blackwhip, the user could then use centripetal force to launch the object at high speeds towards their target. Think of it like a superpowered hammer throw. You grab onto the object, you spin around, and then you let go, launching it with insane power. Blackwhip also has some great potential for physical defense. We know that the tendrils this quirk creates are extremely durable, and that the user can wrap the tendrils around themselves. So if the user was capable of producing enough of the tendrils, they could potentially cover their entire body with the black energy, giving them an extra layer of durable armor. Not only would this give the user an incredible defense, but a suit of armor made of black energy tendrils would also look pretty badass. But the greatest potential this quirk offers is the ability to turn its user into a human spider. And no, I don't mean like Spider-Man. If the user of this quirk gained full control over this ability, they could potentially use the tendrils like spider legs, lifting up the user's body off the ground and allowing them to crawl around on almost any surface like a spider. And when their prey gets in range, they can shoot out more tendrils at their target, grabbing them and trapping them like a bug in a web. Now that's a terrifying ultimate move. And that's everything you need to know about the quirk Blackwhip. Overall, it's a pretty amazing ability. While not being super strong on its own, it certainly makes up for it with a hell of a lot of versatility. It's definitely one of the better quirks out there, and in everyday life, it would also be super useful. But let me know what you think. Would you like to have the quirk Blackwhip? And what quirk would you like me to cover in this series next? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.